Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be doing my February wrap up. I feel like everybody says this every month, but like honestly, this month flew by. It went by so fast, even though yes, it is a shorter month, but technically we had one extra day this year. So yeah, but I'm honestly so impressed with the amount of books I read this month. I read 10 books, which is I think the most books I've ever read in a month since I started my reading journey. And considering it was on a shorter month, kind of impressed with myself. But I had a really good reading month. I read a lot of really great books. I read a lot of different books. Like honestly, I feel like this month was probably like my widest variety of books and genres of books and types of books that I've read in a really long time. And I found some new genres that I'm like really enjoying and found some books that I'm really enjoying. So I feel like all around this was just a great reading month. So I'm super excited to get into this and to tell you guys every book that I've been reading. So without further ado, let's jump into my February wrap up. A lot of these books are in reading vlogs because I did two different reading vlogs this month, I believe. So a lot of them are in there. If you have not watched those, definitely go check those out if you want to see like more of my thoughts and opinions on them. But I'll obviously give you guys some of my thoughts and my ratings in this video as well. Also, one other quick thing I want to know is this month I read every single book on my TBR. I did a TBR jar video at the end of January picking my books for February. I think I picked 6 books and I read all of them, which is like, honestly, I'm so impressed with myself. I don't think I have ever done that. I usually will come up with like a general plan of books that I want to read for each month, but of course, you know, things get in the way or I decide to pick up other books and I just never end up getting to all of them, but I got to every single book on my TBR this month. So very impressed with myself for that. But first book I read is The Circus Train by Amita Parrick. This is a book of the month book I got back in December of 2022, and it has been sitting on my shelf for over a year now, and I just haven't read it. Never was really like interested in it. I never really heard a lot of people talking about it, so I don't know, I just never really wanted to pick it up. It ended up fitting one of the prompts for my TBR video, and I also read it for the video where I read genres that I don't typically read from, and I loved this book so much. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is about a girl named Lena, and she grows up on this traveling circus because her dad is in the circus. She contracted polio when she was really young, and so now she's been in a wheelchair her whole life. This is taking place at the time of World War II, so all these tensions are building up. They're a traveling circus that goes around Europe, and things obviously start to shut down. They're unable to go to certain countries, certain areas, things like that. They also, along the way, pick up a little boy that was found, and he's a Jewish boy, and they kind of pick him up and bring him in. This kind of just follows Lena's life and what happens to her, and then also the little boy Alexander and Lena's father actually end up being taken, and they're forced to work in a ghetto camp, and they're separated from Lena, and this spans over like several years, and it's Lena trying to figure out what happened to them, trying to reunite with them after World War II. There's a little bit of a love story in there. I just really enjoyed this book so much. I loved Lena's story and this kind of like coming of age for her and her finding herself, and I just really thought that this was a beautiful book. Next, I read Buy Yourself the Fucking Lilies by Tara Schuster. This was another book that was in my reading genres I don't normally read reading vlog, and gonna be honest, I didn't love this one. I talk more about it in the reading vlog, but this is a self-help book, but kind of written in the style of a memoir. Like you get stories about her life, but it is very much self-help, and I just think self-help isn't necessarily for me. I don't enjoy reading nonfiction like that. Also, I feel like I didn't really connect with her and her struggles and what she was going through, so it was kind of hard for me to, I don't know, just connect with her, I guess. And I don't know, it just wasn't a favorite of mine. There were parts I enjoyed, and she is a comedy writer, so I liked that there were some humorous parts in it, but overall, it definitely was not one that I enjoyed. I've had this on my shelf for a very long time, and I'm glad that I finally read it, so I know like what it was about and, you know, could get it off of my physical TBR, but I really just, I don't know, didn't enjoy it, wasn't a fave for me. I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. Then I read I've Got This Round by Mae Marie Hart. I've been a huge fan of Mae Marie's probably since I was like 12 or 13. I've been watching her on YouTube. I religiously listen to her and Grace Helbig's podcast every single week, and I just absolutely adore her. This is actually her second book, but I had picked this up a while back. I had been at like a used bookstore and I saw that they had this, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I've like never read that. I picked it up, read it this month, literally loved this so much. Also, if you're going to read this, I highly recommend listening to it on audiobook. It's actually on the Spotify like free audiobooks. But the reason I loved it so much, and I don't typically like audiobooks, but the reason that I loved it so much is because Mamrie is the one telling the story. So you get her little anecdotes, just hearing it in her voice. As someone that's watched her videos for a long time, listened to her podcast, it was honestly like listening to her telling stories on her podcast. So I really enjoyed this. I literally devoured this book in like 2 days. I'm pretty sure the listening time is only like 6 hours, so it's really short, easy to get through. But I just love this so much. She adds little pictures and fun little stories, and I just thought that this one was a lot of fun. I'm not usually a memoir person, but I feel like when it's someone that you enjoy and you already kind of know a little bit about them, I really enjoyed this, and I gave this one 4 stars. Next up, I read Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. This was one that a friend recommended to me. Again, posted a video reading some books that friends recommended to me, and I'm so happy I read this. I loved this book so much. The friend that recommended it to me, she's a big fantasy girly. That's pretty much all she reads, and so I knew that she would give me a good fantasy rec. And she did, because this book was so good. There were twists, there were turns. It was an easy fantasy. I feel like I was able to get through it quickly, and I wasn't confused like I am with a lot of fantasies. I feel like a lot of times with fantasies, the first like 60-70 pages, I'm literally like, I have no idea what's going on. But I feel like this book was really well explained. I enjoyed the world building. The politics weren't too complicated. And even though there's like a touch of a romance in here, I feel like in the next book is when it's going to be like really heavy on the romance. So I'm so looking forward to reading that. This is on Kindle Unlimited if you are interested. The entire series is, well, at least the first 2 books, and then the 3rd book comes out later this year. But I'm so excited to get into it. So I gave this one 4 stars, and this is about Lore, and she has grown up in this prison in one of the courts in this kingdom. And one day she is taken out of there. She doesn't know where she's taken to, and she finds out that she's taken to another one of the courts, which is the Sun Court. And there she's put into a series of trials. So basically the king of the Sun Kingdom is looking for a new wife. And in this kingdom, when he's looking for a new wife, they put 10 women in this trial, and basically they have to like go through all of these different trials and tests and things, and whoever wins gets to be his wife. But she's obviously very confused why she's there, because she's not even a part of this kingdom or this court, and she's like, I don't know why I'm here. Things start to get revealed. It's so good. You also get the point of view of Nadir, and he's the Prince of Aurora, which is the kingdom that Lore is from. And he's kind of trying to figure out what happened to this missing prisoner, and the missing prisoner is Lore, and it's just this whole like thing. And at the end, there's this huge plot twist, and it's just so good. I'm so excited to read the next book because they kind of leave you on a cliffhanger. So I literally can't wait to get into the next book. Highly recommend this one. Also, can't remember if I said, but I did get this one 4 stars. Next, I read Bringing Down the Duke. This is another friend recommended book, and I give this one 3 stars. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't love it. It is a historical romance, but it is set in 1879 in England, and I feel like that time period of books is just not for me. Like, I don't find that historical time super intriguing. So I feel like I just wasn't as interested. I also don't know a lot about that time, and I feel like a lot of the politics and what was going on in England at that time was not explained very well. I feel like the author kind of just expects you to know the politics of that time, and so I feel like I was very confused a lot of the time. Basically, this is about Annabelle, and she's one of the first women to go to Oxford, and she joins the suffragette movement. She decides that she's going to try to persuade the Duke of, he's the Duke of Edinburgh, maybe? I don't know, he's a duke, but anyways. So she decides that she's gonna kind of try and persuade him, because she knows that if she can get him on the suffragette side, then he'll be able to convince a bunch of other people in the government to allow women the right to vote. So she's kind of trying to go after him, and then they form this little romance, and I don't know, I did love him, like the main guy. I really did not like him until the very end, and even then, he was like barely redeemed for me. So I didn't like him and didn't feel the connection between the two of them. And then along with being confused by the politics and everything, also the writing style is very Old Englishy kind of. It's not the language that you typically read in contemporary romances. So all of that together, it just wasn't a favorite for me. There were parts I did really enjoy, but overall I don't know. I didn't love it. And the last friend recommended book that I read this month was The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. This is another historical fiction book, and oh my gosh, I am obsessed with this book. The way that so much was put into this book, so many details, so many plot lines, and like, I feel like sometimes when you get a lot of different plot lines going on in one book, it can almost get a little muddled and get confusing, and you feel like certain things are left out or you wish you had more details on certain things. But I did not feel that way at all. I feel like every plot line was so well thought out. Connections between the characters and their stories, just everything about this book was truly phenomenal. I gave this one 4.5 stars. So basically you have two different timelines going. So you have 1947, post-World War II, you have Charlie. She's an American girl. She gets pregnant out of wedlock. So her parents bring her to Europe to force her to have an abortion. And then you also have 1915, and you have a woman named Eve, and she's a spy for the British military during World War I, and she's living in France at the time. So you're seeing both of their timelines, and in the 1947 timeline of Charlie's, she basically runs away from her mom while she's in Europe to get this abortion and goes to find Eve because she believes that Eve knows what happened to her cousin that went missing during World War II. Everyone in Charlie's family thinks that her cousin is dead, but Charlie's like, no, I feel like she is still alive, and this woman, Eve, knows what happened to her. So you figure out what this connection between Eve and her cousin is, and then Charlie and Eve kind of go on this like mission together to figure out what happened to her cousin. Then you're getting flashbacks to Eve's timeline and being a spy. There's a little bit of romance in here. This book is phenomenal, so well written. I truly loved everything about this book. If you are into historical fiction or want to get into historical fiction, I feel like this is a really good book to start with because there's a lot of different elements in this book. There's a little bit of mystery because you're trying to figure out what happened to the cousin. There's a little bit of romance. Like, everything is just so well done in this book. I really, really enjoyed reading this. And if you have read this and you know of other books similar to this, please let me know because I loved this book so much. Next up, I read The Housemaid's Secret by Freida McFadden. This is the second book after The Housemaid, and I absolutely love The Housemaid, and I love Freida McFadden's books. Like, honestly, I just eat her books up. I'm always so entertained, so always on the edge of my seat, and just love them. And I did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. Honestly, thinking about it now, I feel like maybe I would give it 3.5 just because it is so similar to The Housemaid. Kind of hard to explain what happens in this book without like giving away a big plot point of what happens in The Housemaid, but I feel like the two storylines were very similar, and I feel like I guessed a lot of what was going to happen in this book because of what happened in the first book. It was still entertaining. There were still plot twists that I didn't see coming, but I feel like the overall storyline was almost too similar. I just wish that she had changed it up a little bit and kind of changed up what the big reveal was, but it was still entertaining. I still enjoyed it. I literally read it in one day. Her books are so fast-paced, so easy to read. They're all on Kindle Unlimited too, so if you're looking for a book to like get you out of a slump, definitely read, honestly, any Freida McFadden book. But yeah, I did enjoy this one. I do want to read the third one in the series when it comes out. I believe it comes out this summer, and I do still want to read it, but yeah, I don't know. It wasn't as good as The Housemaid. Then I read The Girls by Emma Cline. This has been on my physical TBR for probably like 2 years at this point, or almost 2 years. I tried picking it up at one point. I think I got like 100 pages in and then ended up DNFing it. And this month for my TBR jar, it was a book that you've been putting off reading or something like that. So I picked this book, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't love it. So I was super intrigued about this. It's about like a cult and this woman that was in a cult in the 60s. It's based off of the Manson cult. So if you know anything about that, it's pretty much exactly sort of what happens in that. But I just wanted so much more from this book. The like big twist and, you know, what I was expecting from this book didn't really come until the end. I feel like I was like waiting and waiting and waiting, reading through the book and like, okay, something's gotta happen, something's gotta happen. And it was just very slow paced. Obviously the concept in writing a story about the Manson cult is like, I feel like could be done really, really well, but this just didn't hit for me. I didn't love the writing style. It was almost like too poetic, if that makes sense. I feel like there were a lot of times where she was using metaphors and this very poetic lyrical speech, and it just didn't make sense. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad that I've been putting this off for a long time, so I'm glad I read it, but I don't know, I didn't love it. Then I read A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. This is a book that I have been wanting to read for so long. I feel like you see this on like Book Talk literally all the time. I've heard so many good things about it, and I really wanted to read this book, and I'm so glad I picked it up. I gave this one 4 stars. It's actually now been made into a movie, but I think they changed it to like A Man Called Otto, I'm pretty sure, and it has Tom Hanks in it, I think. Haven't watched the movie. Not sure that I will, to be completely honest, but I really enjoyed the book so much. So this is about Ove, and he's basically a really grumpy, crotchety old man. You find out that his wife recently passed away, and he's living in this house, and he's basically preparing himself to die. He is preparing to take his life. He's like, I don't want to live anymore without my wife. He got let off from his job, and he's like, this is it. Then this family moves in next door to him, and the first interaction he has with them is them backing their trailer into his mailbox, and he hates them, and he's pissed off, and he's just mad at the world. And you get little flashbacks to his childhood. He lost both of his parents at a young age, and so you kind of start to like feel for him and, understand why he is the way that he is. And then it just becomes so heartwarming and such a beautiful story, and you just feel for him so much. I literally sobbed at the end of this book. So amazing. Like, I loved it so much. Please, please, please read this book because it is so good. It's so heartwarming. I have this like soft spot in my heart for little old men. I don't know why, and I just loved him so much, and it's just such a sweet book. And the last book that I read this month is The Way I Am Now by Amber Smith. This is the second book after The Way I Used to Be. Major trigger warnings on this book. First and foremost, if you have not read The Way I Used to Be, it is about Eden, and she is sexually assaulted by her brother's best friend when she is in high school, and then it follows her over the 4 years of high school and kind of how that changes her and the struggles that she goes through and everything. And then this book follows her throughout her first year of college. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away what happens in the first book, but there's this romance between her, and she's kind of finally starting, after everything that happened to her, starting to kind of find herself and figure herself out. I feel like in the first book, you definitely got frustrated with her by these decisions she was making. You know why, she's clearly really struggling, but I feel like in this book, you were able to unpack so much more of like how she's feeling and how she's trying to overcome this. She reconnects with an ex, and they just kind of, the way that they are so unbelievably like in love with each other, and the way that they help each other through things that both of them are struggling with, it is just so beautiful. I felt like I could really connect to the characters and understand why they are the way they are, why they're doing the things that they're doing. And even though there were times that I was frustrated with them, I feel like it was for a good reason. And it's just, this book is so good. If you've read the first one, you definitely need to read the second one. It's a pretty fast-paced book. Even though it's 400 pages, I feel like it was really fast-paced, and I loved it so much. So that is all for my February wrap-up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books, any of your thoughts, and yeah, make sure to subscribe down below. Also, if you guys have any video ideas or recommendations, definitely let me know down below, because I have been trying to like plan out some different videos, but I would love to get some suggestions from you guys. So definitely let me know down below. Make sure to subscribe and like this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.